name is Walfrin Batista. I work in the Information Services Department of Bergen Newbridge Medical Center. So we are a healthcare organization that provides long-term care and acute care to the patients and residents of Bergen County, New Jersey. The IT strategy and function of our organization is actually one of the major pillars and focuses of the organization. So it sits next to revenue, sits next to patient safety and care. What makes IT and healthcare special is the fact that we deal with stringent compliance and regulatory controls. And so with that comes a complexity of making sure both user and endpoint are secured for the patient's safety and for the provider's experience. In healthcare, like I mentioned, we have complex and regulatory requirements, and like you mentioned, how ManageEngine products specifically address these complex natures is some of the insights we receive from the tooling. For instance, in Endpoint Central, we get some of the feedback with HIPAA compliance, which is one of the regulatory frameworks we have to follow. It really helps align both our users and our workstations to those regulatory controls, and allows us to provide external audits and auditors the necessary information they need about that compliance. So it's been really helpful in that strategy. Our experience with Endpoint Central has been great, and we were able to offset a major product that everyone uses for device management called the Microsoft Endpoint Configuration Manager. And we were able to replace that with Endpoint Central, get our devices managed, and be able to also adjust and adapt for remote support, leveraging Endpoint Central's remote view functionality. So it has been really crucial in unifying the management of multiple different devices on our environment. So that would be cell phone, that would be mobile device, and workstations at on-site. Yeah, to answer your question, how Endpoint Central helps us in providing that, in aligning to compliance regulatory needs and metrics internally and externally, is through the Insights feature, right? We have a vulnerability management add-on that really helps us understand the risk register that we have internally with this scanning capability in Endpoint Central to determine if our assets are most vulnerable to these potential external risks, right? With that, it aligns us to popular frameworks like NIST. So we're able to use our CIS benchmarking tool to make sure we're aligned to the identify concept of the NIST framework. The same goes for the ability to look at reports and insight in Endpoint Central. It allows us to align with asset management, again, aligning to the NIST framework as well. So it's really been helpful to have that insight capability in Endpoint Central where the assets are being managed and their state to align to these popular frameworks and regulatory compliance needs. Yeah, so I think the question is twofold, right? One is, what is the IT landscape as it is now, and how did Endpoint Central help us? So that's how I'd like to approach it. So Endpoint Central in whole, offsets the need for specialized, skill sets in device management or in, endpoint management, right? Typically in prior experiences, a system like SCCM requires usually very knowledgeable 5+ year engineers who understand application packaging and payload management. And so with the talent vacuum that we've seen in the last 5 years, a solution like Endpoint Central has allowed us to deploy it, not only deploy it, but support it through the FAQs, through the admin guides available right on the ManageEngine website, and using the ManageEngine pit stop community has allowed us to really be able to make use of the product without necessarily impacting or having a need to hire a ManageEngine specific talent, right? So it eliminates the need for a specialized talent and makes it accessible to all levels of our department for use. Experience with Pit Stop has been outstanding. So it's a really, vocal community of, like-minded engineers and support staff as well that come together and help us with technical issues. One in particular I've had was when we need to deploy a new application And for instance, in MDM, you want to set a specific configuration for that application you want to distribute. ManageEngine Pit Stop has been helpful for me to identify how to configure that configuration file and what best practice should I use to deploy the application. And all of that was readily available for free, or as long as I was able to, log in and be a customer. So it was really been pivotal for us to make quick decisions, get action and deployment out to the. So data security in a healthcare organization is paramount, right? All of our data in some capacity impacts the patient's experience and also patient safety. So understanding who, what, and how that data is being leveraged across multiple platforms is important for us in the healthcare industry. So it really does make it a critical task and need to ensure that you can see the data, who's leveraging the data, and how are they leveraging that data. In terms of compliance, the tooling that we've taken on from ManageEngine has helped us by providing the actual insights. So these pre-built insights are usually aligned to modern frameworks like HIPAA in my case, or NIST, or CIS benchmarking for workstations. So having those predefined and predetermined benchmarks, or frameworks if you will, helps us understand the landscape, and we don't have to do the updating ourselves, if you will. We have that insight to understand where we stand against the industry and where we need to move forward to be compliant. So some of the challenges we faced prior to onboarding some ManageEngine products, were essential, managing workstations in a centralized place, and that being different device types in one, single pane of glass, if you will. When we brought on, especially the product Endpoint Central, we were able to bring mobile devices, workstations, servers, and even some IoT devices that have a native OS on them installed into one centralized management point so that we can, effectively place controls on those devices. So that was a huge challenge and obstacle to get across, and we were able to do so. The next is, OS upgrades and maintaining upgrades and upgrade standards. By using a ManageEngine product, we were able to, one, understand how compliant devices are, and two, when is the best recommended time to deploy those upgrades. Once we enabled these ManageEngine products, specifically from a patch management and vulnerability management standpoint, we went from having typically a 3-month lead time on patches, meaning we weren't actually updating any devices for about 90 days out, to being able to reduce that time frame to short of 30 days to 14 days on updating patches and keeping patch management up to date with our workstations and endpoints. The same goes for vulnerability management. We went from having an almost 20 to 30% compliance in terms of vulnerabilities being remediated to almost jumping to a 78 to almost 85% compliance and climbing due to enabling vulnerability management on our endpoint management solution. Yeah, absolutely. We brought Browser Security Plus, the add-on for Endpoint Central, about 1.5 years ago, and it was to really cover down on a major view or visibility issue we had. So, we manage Edge and Chrome browsers throughout the organization, and one of the gaps in our visibility was, are users leveraging the correct extensions, approved extensions? Are users being able to access specific systems or sites and download specific files that we may have not caught on our endpoint, detection and response solution? And so what Browser Security Plus has enabled us to do is actually see and get those insights and enforce compliance and enforce policies that allow us to approve the correct extensions, see whether the websites being accessed are potentially malicious, and also mitigate what type of file extensions are being downloaded or can potentially be downloaded to the user's machine and mitigate that. So it's been a great experience to add. Mobile device management was an interesting add for us. So we just came off a larger product called IBM's Mass 360. Which was a well-known product. We had it for a few years. And so what we continued to have issues with was enrolling different flavored devices into one MDM solution. And we continued to experience that issue with IBM for some time. So when we onboarded the MDM add-on for Endpoint Central, that was immediately taken away. We were able to discover all of the workstations or roaming computers that we have in our environment, obviously do the Endpoint Central agent, enroll them automatically with zero touch enrollment to MDM, and then now start enrolling mobile devices using the enrollment policy and the auto enrollment with Apple Business Manager. So that that convergence of technologies into one platform made MDM the logical solution for us, and it has kind of really panned out bared fruit for us in the last year or so. My experience working with ManageEngine products has been pretty favorable. I enjoy the opportunity to train myself and learn from the community. So it's readily available, and access to information is key. So ManageEngine makes it really easy to do so. And two is the ease of use when it comes to testing and trying out new technology and new platforms. It's not limited to a subscription. It's not limited to me contacting an account rep. It's really, do I need it? Can I download the 30-day trial? And can I see for myself if it really benefits the organization? So it's been great. Top 3 things I like about ManageEngine is 1, the accessibility. Like I mentioned, being able to access the platforms and download the full-length platform with no limitation is a huge benefit to any organization who wants to prospect the application. 2 is adoption. It has a really easy adoption rate. Our CIO really backs that product, really likes the ManageEngine ecosystem in terms of adoption. And 3, it fits a lot of needs for a lot of niche requirements, if that makes sense. So we're a healthcare focused organization, so that requires specific niche products to accomplish security, accomplish compliance, and ManageEngine helps us do that. So that's one of the 3 things I like about ManageEngine. Now, ManageEngine has a multitude of solutions, and they have different flavors and levels of it. One of the things that I thought was great that was mentioned in the user conference was the ability to unify some of the administrative controls and being able to unify the feel and look of, for instance, Federation and SSO, the feel and look of alert notifications between platforms. And I'm hoping, looking to the future, that uniform experience is going to be available to everybody.